Commander Zixval stood at the center of the bridge, his forearms clasped behind his back. The purple-skinned alien watched the stars through the viewport of the Silent Dawn. His exploration vessel had been mapping this sector for 3 cycles, and nothing interesting had happened until now. "Commander," called out the sensor officer, his voice clicking with excitement. "I'm detecting an unusual energy signature." Zixval turned, his black eyes narrowing. "Explain." "It's unlike anything. In our database, sir. The readings suggest advanced technology, but the pattern is strange." The commander moved to the sensor station, his long robe swishing against the metal floor. The Krathen were the most advanced species in the known galaxy, or so they believed. Finding new technology was rare, and usually meant discovering another primitive race to add to their list of lesser beings. "Take us closer," Zixval ordered. "But carefully. We don't know what we're dealing with." The Silent Dawn adjusted course, its sleek silver hull cutting through space like a knife. The Krathen ship was beautiful, designed for exploration and first contact missions. Its weapons were more for show than actual combat. After all, who would dare challenge the mighty Krathen Empire? First Officer Thrix joined the commander, her green skin shimmering under the bridge lights. "Another primitive species to catalog?" she asked, sounding bored. "Perhaps," Zixval replied, "though these energy readings are interesting." The ship dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the detected anomaly. What they saw made every crew member freeze. Before them floated a vessel unlike anything in Krathen records. It was huge, easily 3 times the size of the Silent Dawn. But size wasn't what shocked them. The ship was angular, almost ugly by Krathen standards. Its dark gray hull was covered in armor plating, with countless weapons ports visible along its sides. Strange symbols were painted on the hull. USS Defiant NCC 419. "By the ancestors," Thrix whispered. "What is that thing?" Inside the USS Defiant, alarms chimed softly. Captain Jack Miller looked up from his coffee, setting the mug down on his command chair's armrest. The human warship had been on routine patrol when their sensors detected the alien vessel's approach. "Report," Jack said calmly. Lieutenant Laura White, the communications officer, turned from her station. "Unknown vessel just dropped out of FTL, Captain. Configuration doesn't match anything in our database." "How did they find us?" asked Weapons Officer Kyle Roberts. "We're running silent." "Their sensors must be pretty good," Jack replied, standing up. He was a tall man with short gray hair and eyes that had seen too many battles. "Let's say hello. Laura, open a channel." "Channel open, sir." Jack straightened his uniform. "Attention, unknown vessel. This is Captain Jack Miller of the USS Defiant, representing the United Earth Defense Force. Please identify yourself and state your intentions." On the Silent Dawn, chaos erupted as the human message played through their speakers. The universal translator worked quickly, but the very fact that these beings had contacted them first was shocking. They hailed us?" Thrix said, her voice filled with disbelief. "But we're the Krathen. We make first contact." Zixval regained his composure quickly. "Open a channel. Let's see what these creatures want." When the video feed connected, both sides got their first look at each other. The Krathen saw beings that looked soft and vulnerable. 2 arms, 2 legs, no natural armor or weapons. The humans saw tall purple aliens with 4 arms and black eyes. "I am Commander Zixval of the Krathen Empire," the alien said, trying to sound imposing. "You will submit to inspection and provide us with information about your species and technology." Jack raised an eyebrow. Behind him, his bridge crew remained perfectly calm, though Kyle's hand rested near his weapons console. "I'm afraid that won't be possible, Commander," Jack replied politely. "We're happy to engage in peaceful dialogue, but human vessels are sovereign territory. We don't submit to inspections." The Krathen bridge fell silent. They had never encountered a species that refused their demands. Usually, primitive races were either terrified or eager to please their obvious superiors. "You misunderstand," Zixval said slowly. "We are the Krathen. Our technology far exceeds anything you could imagine. Refusal is not an option. Jack smiled slightly. With respect, Commander, I think you're the one who misunderstands. We've been watching you since you entered this sector. Your technology is impressive, but we prefer to handle first contact situations on equal terms. Thrix leaned toward her commander. They've been watching us? That's impossible. Our stealth systems are perfect. But as she looked at the human, Captain's calm face and the massive warship behind him, a seed of doubt began to grow. Something about these humans was very, very different from any species they had encountered before. Captain Jack Miller watched the alien commander's face on the view screen. The purple-skinned being seemed confused by his refusal. Jack had seen this reaction before in old first contact recordings, species who thought they were the biggest fish in the pond meeting something unexpected. Laura, how's that translation matrix coming along? Jack asked quietly. Working on it, Captain, Laura White replied, her fingers dancing across her console. Their language structure is complex, but I think I can improve the translation quality. The silent dawn. Commander Zixval paced back and forth. His forearms gestured wildly as he spoke to his first officer. This is unprecedented. No species has ever refused our initial scan. They must not understand who we are. Perhaps we should demonstrate our power, Thrix suggested. A simple display might convince them to cooperate. Zixval nodded and turned. Back to the screen. Captain Miller, I will give you one more chance. Submit to our scan, or we will be forced to take aggressive action. Jack remained calm. Commander, I understand this might be unusual for you, but humanity has protocols for first contact situations. We're happy to exchange information voluntarily, but we won't submit to forced scanning. Perhaps we could start with cultural exchange instead. The human crew watched their captain with admiration. Jack had been through 17 first contact situations in his career, more than any other officer in the fleet. He knew exactly how to handle aggressive species without escalating to violence. Cultural exchange? Zixval scoffed. We are not here to make friends. We are here to catalog and assess potential threats to the Krathan Empire. Sir, Kyle Roberts whispered from the weapons station. They're powering up some kind of scanning array. It's pretty advanced, but our shields can handle it. Jack nodded slightly. Commander Zixval, I notice you're preparing to scan us anyway. I must warn you that our defensive systems will automatically respond to unauthorized scans. For both our sakes, I suggest we try talking first. Your warnings mean nothing, Zixval declared. Initiate deep scan. A bright beam of energy shot from the silent dawn toward the human ship. The Krathan crew waited eagerly for the data to start flowing in. Instead, they watched in shock as the beam hit an invisible barrier around the Defiant and dissipated harmlessly. What? Thrix exclaimed. That's impossible. Our scanners can penetrate any known shielding. Status report, Zixval demanded. The scan was absorbed, Commander, the sensor officer reported, his voice shaking. Their shields didn't just block it. They absorbed the energy completely. I've never seen anything like it. On the Defiant, Laura smiled. Translation matrix is now at 98% efficiency, Captain. They seem quite surprised that their scan didn't work. I imagine they are, Jack replied. He activated the comm again. Commander, as I tried to explain, we prefer voluntary exchange of information. Your scanning beam was quite impressive, but human shield technology is designed to handle much more aggressive approaches. Zixval's purple skin had turned a shade paler. This is not possible. We have the most advanced technology in the known galaxy. The galaxy is a big place, Commander, Jack said gently. Perhaps we could start over? I'm Captain Jack Miller, and I'd be happy to tell you about humanity and our journey to the stars. In return, we'd love to learn about the Krathan Empire. The bridge of the Silent Dawn was silent. The crew looked to their commander, waiting for orders. They had encountered many species before, but never one that could so easily deflect their technology. Thrix leaned close to Zixval. Commander, perhaps we should reconsider our approach. These humans clearly possess technology we don't understand. Zixval's pride warred with his curiosity. Finally, he straightened his robes and faced the screen again. Very well, Captain. Miller, we will down talk, but know that the Krathen Empire does not take such defiance lightly. Understood, Commander, Jack replied with a diplomatic smile. Now shall we begin with proper introductions? I believe you'll find humanity has quite an interesting story to tell. As the two captains began to talk, neither species realized they were witnessing a moment that would change the galaxy forever. The mighty Krathen Empire had just met its match, not in war or conquest, but in a simple conversation between two ships in the depths of space. Laura began recording everything, knowing this first contact would be studied for generations. The age of human-Krathen relations had begun, and it started not with a bang but with words. The conversation between the two ships had been going for nearly an hour. Commander Zixval listened as Captain Miller explained basic human history. The Krathen commander found it hard to believe what he was hearing. You're telling me, Zixval said slowly, that your species advanced from using stone tools to space travel in less than 10,000 years? Jack nodded. That's correct. We've had our share of challenges along the way. Impossible, Thrix whispered to her commander. The Krathen took 50,000 years to achieve spaceflight, but Zixval was beginning to understand something important. These humans were different, very different. Commander, the Krathen sensor officer interrupted. I've been running passive scans on their ship. The power readings are extraordinary. Explain, Zixval ordered. Their reactor output is at least 5 times more powerful than ours. And those aren't just weapons ports on their hull. They're launch tubes for some kind of automated defense system. Jack had been watching the aliens carefully. He could see their growing unease as they learned more about human capabilities. It was time for a demonstration. Commander Zixval, Jack said, I notice your crew seems concerned about our defensive systems. Perhaps a small demonstration would help build trust? A demonstration? Zixval asked carefully. Nothing aggressive, Jack assured him. Kyle, launch a target drone. Let's show our new friends what our point defense can do. Weapons Officer Kyle Roberts grinned. Aye, Captain. Launching drone. A small metallic sphere shot out from the Defiant, moving to a position between the two ships. It began to glow and spin, creating an obvious target. Now, Jack explained, this drone will release several dozen micro-targets. Watch carefully. The drone suddenly exploded into a cloud of tiny, fast-moving objects. Before the Krathen crew could even track them all, beams of light shot from the Defiant. In less than 2 seconds, every single target was vaporized. The silent. Dawn's bridge fell completely silent. That's impossible, Thrix said. Our computers couldn't even track all those targets, let alone hit them. Our point defense system is controlled by an artificial intelligence we call Alice, Laura explained. She can track and engage thousands of targets simultaneously. Thousands? Zixval repeated weakly. If needed, Jack confirmed. Though we hope it never comes to that. As I said, we prefer peaceful relations. The Krathen commander was experiencing something he'd never felt before. Humility. His proud empire, which had dominated their region of space for millennia, had just met a species that made their technology look primitive. Captain Miller, Zixval said carefully, I believe I may have misjudged your species. Jack smiled, warmly. It's a common mistake. We humans don't look very intimidating, do we? No, Zixval admitted. But appearances can be deceiving. Sir, the Krathen science officer called out, I've been analyzing their ship's design. It's not just built for combat. It has medical facilities, research labs, and what appears to be disaster relief equipment. That's correct, Jack said. The Defiant is what we call a multi-role vessel. We can fight if we must, but we prefer to help. Last month we assisted in evacuating a colony world facing an asteroid impact. Thrix looked confused. You use a warship for humanitarian missions? Why not, Laura replied. If you have the power to help others, shouldn't you use it? This concept seemed to puzzle the Krathen even more than the human technology. In their culture, military vessels were for conquest and intimidation, not helping lesser species. "I have a proposal," Jack said. "Why don't you send a small delegation aboard the Defiant? You can see for yourselves that we mean no harm, and perhaps we could send a team to visit your ship as well?" Zixval hesitated. Everything he'd been taught said this was dangerous, but everything he'd seen told him these humans could have destroyed them already if they wanted to. "You would trust us aboard your vessel?" he asked. "Of course," Jack replied. "Trust has to start somewhere. Besides, I think you'll find we have excellent coffee in the mess hall." "Coffee?" Zixval asked. "A human beverage, very popular among our crew, though I should warn you it's quite strong." For the first time, Zixval felt something besides fear or confusion. He felt curiosity. "Very well, Captain Miller. We accept your invitation. I will personally lead our delegation." "Excellent," Jack said. "We'll prepare to receive you. And Commander, welcome to what I hope is the beginning of a beautiful friendship." As the transmission ended, both crews began preparations for the historic meeting. Neither side knew it yet, but this moment would be remembered as the day the Krathan Empire learned that the most powerful force in the universe wasn't weapons or technology. It was the simple act of reaching out in friendship. The Krathan shuttle approached the Defiant slowly. Inside, Commander Zixval sat rigidly, his 4 hands gripping the armrests. Beside him, Thrix tried to appear calm, but her green skin had turned a lighter shade. "Commander," the pilot said, "the human ship is enormous. Our shuttle could fit in just one of their landing bays." "Steady," Zixval replied. "Remember, we represent the Krathan Empire." As they entered the Defiant's hangar, they saw rows of fighter craft, each sleek and deadly looking. Human crew members moved efficiently around the bay, some stopping to watch the alien shuttle land. The shuttle doors opened and Zixval stepped out first. Captain Miller waited at the bottom of the ramp, flanked by several officers. What surprised the Krathan most was that none of the humans carried visible weapons. "Commander Zixval," Jack said, extending his hand. "Welcome aboard the Defiant." Zixval stared at the outstretched hand, unsure what to do. Thrix whispered, "I believe it's a greeting gesture, Commander." Carefully, Zixval extended one of his hands. Jack shook it firmly but gently. "This is my first officer, Thrix," Zixval said, "and our science officer, Krelvan." "Pleased to meet you all," Jack replied. "This is my chief engineer, Maria Lopez, and our science officer, Paul Adams. Shall we begin the tour?" As they walked through the ship, the Krathan delegation couldn't hide their amazement. The corridors were wide and well lit, with crew members nodding respectfully as they passed. "Your ship is different than we expected," Thrix admitted. Maria smiled. "How so?" "It's so bright. And your crew seems happy." "Why wouldn't they be?" Paul asked. "We have good food, comfortable quarters, and meaningful work." They entered engineering, and Krelvan gasped. The massive reactor core pulsed, with blue energy, contained behind transparent aluminum walls. "This is impossible," Krelvan said. "That much power should tear the ship apart." Maria laughed. "It would, without proper containment. We use a combination of magnetic fields and gravitational manipulation. Would you like to see the equations?" Krelvan nodded eagerly, and soon he and Maria were deep in technical discussion. Zixval watched in amazement as his science officer, one of the brightest minds in the Empire, struggled to keep up with the human engineer. Next, they visited the medical bay. Dr. Lisa Brown showed them advanced healing technology that could regrow limbs and cure diseases the Krathan thought incurable. "We developed much of this during our early space exploration," Lisa explained. "Space is dangerous, and we needed ways to keep our people alive." "But why share this knowledge?" Thrix asked. "You could dominate others with such technology." Lisa looked confused. "Why would we want to dominate anyone? Healing is for everyone." The tour continued to the hydroponics bay, where fresh food grew in abundance. The Krathan tasted strawberries for the first time, their expressions of delight making the human crew smile. Finally, they reached the observation deck. Through the massive windows, they could see both ships floating in space. Jack poured coffee for everyone, though he warned the aliens to sip carefully. "Commander," Jack said, "I think it's time we were honest with each other. You came here thinking we were primitive. We knew you were coming long before you detected us. The question is, what happens now?" Zixval took a careful sip of coffee, his eyes widening at the taste. "You could have destroyed us easily. Why didn't you?" "Because that's not who we are," Jack replied. "Humans have a saying, with great power comes great responsibility. We have the power to destroy, yes, but we choose to build instead. The Krathen have always believed that strength means dominance," Zixval admitted. "But you use strength to protect and help others." "We learned the hard way," Paul said. "Our history has plenty of war and destruction. But we grew past that. We realized that the universe is too vast and wonderful to waste time fighting over small pieces of it." Therix had been quiet, processing everything she'd seen. "Your approach to power is revolutionary. In Krathen society, the strong rule the weak. But you're strong, yet you choose not to rule." "We choose to cooperate instead," Jack said. "It's brought us farther than conquest ever could." Zixval stood and looked out at the stars. Everything he thought he knew about power and civilization was changing. These humans hadn't just surprised him with their technology, they'd challenged his entire worldview. "Captain Miller," he said finally, "I believe the Krathen Empire has much to learn from humanity." Jack raised his coffee cup. "And we're happy to teach, to new friendships and new understanding." As the Krathen delegation raised their cups in response, a new chapter in galactic history began, not with weapons or conquest, but with conversation and coffee on an observation deck. Back on the Silent Dawn, Zixval couldn't stop thinking about everything he'd seen. The Krathen delegation had returned to their ship hours ago, but the commander still paced his quarters, trying to process it all. A chime at his door interrupted his thoughts. "Enter," he called. Therick stepped inside, looking worried. "Commander, we have a situation. The High Council is demanding a full report. They're not pleased that we haven't secured human technology for the Empire." Zixval sighed. "What exactly did you tell them?" "Only that we've made first contact with a new species. But Admiral Vostar is insisting we either obtain their technology or test their combat capabilities." "Test their combat capabilities?" Zixval repeated. "That would be suicide." Another chime sounded, this time from the communications console. "Commander," the bridge officer reported, "Captain Miller is requesting to speak with you." "Put him through," Zixval ordered. Jack's face appeared on the screen, looking concerned. "Commander, our long-range sensors have detected several Krathen warships heading this way. Are we expecting company?" Zixval felt his heart sink. The EU High Council wasn't waiting for his report. They were sending the fleet. "Captain Miller," he said carefully, "I believe there's been a misunderstanding with my government. They may be coming to assess your capabilities." Jack's expression didn't change, but his eyes hardened slightly. "I see. How many ships are we talking about?" "If it's a standard assessment fleet, 12 battle cruisers. And they're coming to fight?" Zixval hesitated. "They're coming to test you. In Krathen culture, we determine a species' worth through combat trials." Jack was quiet for a moment. "Commander, I'm going to ask you a direct question, and I need an honest answer. Do you believe this test is necessary?" The question caught Zixval off guard. No one had ever asked his opinion about High Council decisions before. "No," he admitted. "After what I've seen, I believe it would be a terrible mistake." "Then help us prevent it," Jack said. "We don't want to fight your people, but we will defend ourselves if necessary." Before Zixval could respond, alarms blared across the Silent Dawn. "Commander!" the sensor officer shouted. "The fleet has arrived. Admiral Vossitar is demanding we move aside." 12 massive Krathen battlecruisers dropped out of hyperspace, forming an attack formation. Each ship was bristling with weapons, their purple hulls gleaming menacingly. Admiral Vostar's face appeared on the screen, replacing Jack's. The older Krathon's 6 eyes narrowed at Zixval. Commander, you will withdraw immediately. The High Council has ordered a proper assessment of these humans. Admiral, Zixval tried to explain. These humans are not what we expected. Their technology— Silence, Vossitar snapped. Your failure to secure their technology has been noted. Now stand aside. The transmission cut off. Zixval turned to Thurix. Get Captain Miller back on the screen. When Jack reappeared, he looked calm but alert. I take it those are your reinforcements? Captain, I must warn you. Admiral Vossitar is known for his aggressive tactics. He will attack. We've noticed, Jack replied. They're already charging weapons. Commander, I need you to do something. For me? What? Move your ship to minimum safe distance. What happens next isn't going to be pretty. As if on cue, the Krathon fleet opened fire. 12 ships unleashed their full arsenal at the Defiant. Energy beams, plasma torpedoes, and kinetic rounds filled space with deadly light. The human ship's response was instantaneous. A shimmering blue field surrounded the Defiant, absorbing every attack like rain hitting a pond. Then, small ports opened across the warship's hull. By the ancestors, Thurix whispered. Thousands of tiny drones launched from the Defiant, each no larger than a fist. They swarmed toward the Krathon fleet like angry insects. The battlecruiser's point defense systems tried to track them, but there were simply too many. In seconds, the drones attached themselves to the Krathon ships. Instead of exploding, they began to emit electromagnetic pulses. One by one, the mighty battlecruisers went dark, their systems completely disabled. The entire battle had lasted less than 30 seconds. Admiral Vossitar's flagship is hailing us, the communications officer reported, his voice shaking. On screen, Zixval ordered. The Admiral appeared, sitting in emergency lighting. His arrogance was gone, replaced by shock and fear. What? What did you do? He demanded. Captain Miller's face appeared alongside the Admiral's. Admiral, we've temporarily disabled your ship's systems. No permanent damage has been done, and your life support remains functional. Consider this a demonstration of restraint. Restraint? Vossitar sputtered. Yes, Jack replied firmly. We could have destroyed your fleet. Instead, we chose to show you that there are alternatives to violence. Your ships will regain power in approximately 1 hour. I suggest you use that time to reconsider your approach to first contact situations. The disabled Krathon fleet floated helplessly in space. Inside the flagship, Admiral Vossitar sat in his command chair, his purple skin pale with shock. Emergency lights cast strange shadows across the bridge. Status report, he demanded weakly. All systems offline except life support, his first officer replied. The entire fleet is in the same condition. Whatever those tiny machines did, we can't override it. On the Defiant, Captain Miller turned to his crew. Susan, I think it's time for some diplomatic intervention. Diplomatic Officer Susan Taylor nodded. I agree, Captain. The Krathon need to understand that we're not their enemy. Open a channel to all Krathon ships, Jack ordered, and include Commander Zixval's vessel. When the connection established, Jack spoke calmly but firmly. Admiral Vossitar, Commander Zixval, and all Krathon personnel, I am Captain Jack Miller of the United Earth Defense Force. What you've experienced today is not an attack, but a lesson. A lesson? Vossitar spat. You dare lecture us? Yes, Jack replied simply. Your empire has grown powerful by conquering weaker species. Today, you encountered someone stronger. The question is, what will you learn from this? Susan stepped forward. In human history, we've learned that true strength isn't about domination. It's about the wisdom to use power responsibly. On the silent dawn, Zixval listened carefully. Everything the human said matched what he'd observed during his visit. Admiral, Zixval said, opening a private channel to the flagship. I've been aboard their ship. I've seen their technology, their culture. These humans could have destroyed us all, but they chose not to. Doesn't that tell you something? It tells me they're weak, Vossitar growled. They had the advantage and failed to. Press it. No, Zixval countered. It tells me they're civilized in ways we haven't imagined. They have power beyond our understanding, yet they use it with restraint. Back on the Defiant, Medical Officer Lisa Brown was studying sensor readings from the Crathan ships. "Captain, I'm detecting elevated stress levels among the Crathan crews. They're not just afraid, they're confused." "That's natural," Paul Adams added. "Their entire worldview is being challenged. In their culture, the strong dominate the weak. We're showing them strength used differently." Jack nodded. "Let's help them understand. Susan, prepare a data package. Include basic information about human philosophy, our history of warfare and peace, and examples of international cooperation." "Already working on it," Susan replied. "I'll focus on concepts they can relate to: honor, duty, protection of others." Meanwhile, aboard the disabled flagship, younger Crathan officers were beginning to question their training. "Sir," one lieutenant said to Vossitar, "what if the commander is right? What if there's another way?" "Silence," the admiral snapped. But he could see doubt in his crew's eyes. The Defiant transmitted Susan's carefully prepared data package. On every Crathan ship, screens lit up with images and text. They saw human history, the wars, the peace treaties, the formation of global alliances. They saw humans helping other species, sharing technology, building rather than destroying. "This is propaganda," Vossitar declared, but his voice lacked conviction. "Admiral," Zixval said, "I've met these humans. What you're seeing is truth. They survived their violent phase and chose a different path. Perhaps we can too." As the Crathan crews absorbed the information, something unprecedented began to happen. Junior officers started discussing the human philosophy openly. Engineers marveled at technological applications they'd never considered. Medical staff were fascinated by the human approach to healing. Thrix contacted Zixval privately. "Commander, the crew is talking. Many are impressed by the humans' restraint. They're asking questions about our own methods." "Good," Zixval replied. "Questions lead to growth." Exactly 1 hour after the attack, as promised, the Crathan ship's systems began to restart. Lights flickered on, consoles hummed to life, and engines powered up. "Admiral?" Jack's voice came through clearly now. "Your ships are fully operational. You're free to leave, or you can stay and continue this conversation. The choice is yours." Vostar sat silent for a long moment. Around him, his bridge crew watched, waiting. Finally, he spoke. "Captain Miller, I request permission to come aboard your ship. I believe we have much to discuss." Jack smiled. "Permission granted, Admiral. We'll prepare to receive you." As the transmission ended, Susan turned to Jack. "That's a significant step, Captain. The Crathan don't admit mistakes easily." "Everyone can change," Jack replied. "Sometimes, they just need the right push." In space, the mighty Crathan fleet remained in formation, but their weapons were powered down. For the first time in their empire's history, they had chosen dialogue over destruction. Admiral Vossitar's shuttle approached the Defiant slowly. Inside, the Admiral sat stiffly, his 6 eyes darting nervously. This was the first time in his long career that he'd approached an alien vessel in peace rather than conquest. "Admiral," his aide whispered, "are you certain about this?" "No," Vossitar admitted. "But after what we've witnessed, we must learn more about these humans." The shuttle landed in the Defiant's hangar bay, where Captain Miller waited with a full diplomatic team. As Vostar stepped out, he noticed something that surprised him. The hangar crew continued their work normally, showing no fear of the Yao Crathan delegation. "Admiral Vostar," Jack greeted him warmly. "Welcome aboard the Defiant. I believe you already know Commander Zixval." Vostar turned to see Zixval standing with the humans. "Commander, you should be with your ship." "With respect, Admiral, I believe I'm exactly where I need to be," Zixval replied. They moved to a large conference room where both delegations could sit comfortably. Susan Taylor had prepared presentations about human culture and values. Coffee and water were served, though the Crathan were hesitant to try the unfamiliar beverage. "Admiral," Susan began, "we understand this situation is difficult for you. Your empire has operated one way for thousands of years. Change is never easy. Change? Vostar scoffed. You speak as if the Krathen Empire needs to change. Doesn't it? Jack asked gently. Your method of first contact nearly led to the destruction of your fleet. How many other species have you encountered this way? How many potential allies have you turned into enemies? The Admiral was silent, but his defensive posture began to soften. Paul Adams activated a holographic display. Let me show you something. This is a map of human space and our allies. The display filled with dozens of star systems connected by trade routes and defensive pacts. All these species are your subjects? Vostar asked. No, Paul replied. They're our friends, trading partners, and allies. We protect each other, share knowledge, and grow together. But how do you maintain control? We don't, Susan explained. We maintain relationships, trust, mutual benefit. The presentation continued, showing examples of human cooperation with other species, medical breakthroughs shared freely, joint scientific expeditions, cultural exchanges that enriched all participants. Slowly, Vostar began to understand. The humans hadn't just developed superior technology. They'd developed a superior way of existing in the galaxy. In our empire, the Admiral said slowly, the strong rule the weak. It has always been so. And where has that led you? Jack asked. Your empire spans many systems, but how many of those populations truly support you? How much energy do you waste maintaining control through fear? Vossitar thought of the constant rebellions, the resources spent crushing dissent, the fear that governed every interaction with subject species. There is another way, Susan said softly. A harder way, perhaps, but ultimately more rewarding. Chief Security Officer Mike Davis entered the room. Captain, sorry to interrupt, but we're receiving distress calls. A mining colony in the Kelvar system is experiencing severe seismic activity. They're requesting immediate evacuation assistance. The Kelvar system? Vostar said. That's in Krathen space. Why would they contact you? Because they know we'll help, Jack replied simply. He turned to Mike. Prepare emergency response teams. We'll depart as soon as our guests are back on their ships. Wait, Vostar said. These are Krathen subjects. We should handle this. With respect, Admiral, do your battle cruisers have the equipment for large-scale evacuation and disaster relief? Vostar fell silent. His ships were built for war, not rescue operations. Admiral, Zixval said, perhaps we could assist the humans, learn from their methods? For a long moment, Vostar struggled with his pride. Finally, he nodded. Yes. We will assist. Jack smiled. Excellent. Susan, coordinate with the Krathen fleet. Let's show them how humans handle emergencies. As both groups prepared for the rescue mission, something remarkable happened. Krathen and human crews began working together, sharing information and resources. Warriors learned to be rescuers. Conquerors learned to be helpers. Captain, Laura reported later. The Krathen crews are adapting quickly. They seem eager to learn. Everyone wants to be part of something meaningful, Jack replied. They just needed to see there was another way. In the conference room, Vossitar watched the preparations with growing respect. These humans had defeated his fleet without firing a shot, and now they were teaching his warriors to save lives. Captain Miller, he said quietly, I believe I owe you an apology. No apology necessary, Admiral. We're all learning today. As the combined fleet prepared to jump to the Kelvar system, a new alliance was forming, not through force or fear, but through understanding and shared purpose. The combined fleet arrived at the Kelvar system to find chaos. The mining colony's planet was breaking apart, massive earthquakes sending shockwaves through the settlements. Thousands of miners and their families needed immediate evacuation. Admiral, Captain, the colony administrator's panicked voice came through the comm. We have less than 6 hours before total planetary collapse. Jack took charge immediately. Maria, deploy emergency shelters. Kyle, use our tractor beams to stabilize the larger structures. Susan, coordinate evacuation priorities with the colony. Admiral Vossitar watched in amazement as the human crew worked with precision and calm. What can my ships do to help, he asked. Your ships have larger cargo holds, Jack replied. Can you convert them for passenger transport? We've never, but yes, we can try. For the next 5 hours, humans and Krathen worked side by side. The Defiance medical teams treated injured colonists while Krathen warriors carefully carried children to safety. Engineers from both species shared solutions to technical problems. Zixval found himself working alongside Maria Lopez, using Krathen tractor beams in ways he'd never imagined. These beams were designed to capture enemy ships, he said, but you're using them to hold buildings together. Tools are just tools, Maria replied. It's how you use them that matters. On the planet's surface, Krathen soldiers experienced something new: gratitude. Colonists they had ruled through fear now looked at them with appreciation as they carried families to safety. Thank you, a young mother said to a Krathen warrior as he lifted her children into a rescue shuttle. The warrior, trained only for combat, didn't know how to respond. He simply nodded and continued working. With 30 minutes remaining, the last colonist was aboard the ships. As the fleet pulled away, the planet finally succumbed to its geological instability, breaking apart in a spectacular display of destruction. All colonists accounted for, Susan reported. 0 casualties. The bridge of the Defiant erupted in cheers. Even the Krathen officers allowed themselves small smiles of satisfaction. Admiral Vostar stood beside Captain Miller, watching the remnants of the planet drift apart. We saved them all, he said quietly, as if not quite believing it. We did it together, Jack emphasized. Your crews performed admirably. They did, didn't they? Vossitar's voice held pride, but of a different kind than before. Not pride in conquest, but in preservation. Later, in the Defiance conference room, both delegations gathered for a final meeting. The mood was different now, lighter, more collegial. Captain Miller, Vostar began, I must report to the High Council. What should I tell them? Tell them the truth, Jack suggested. That you encountered a species willing to be friends rather than subjects. That strength can be used to build rather than destroy. They may not understand. Then help them understand. Zixval interjected. Show them what we accomplished today. 12 warships and 1 human vessel saved thousands of lives. No shots fired, no lives lost. Vostar nodded slowly. Commander Zixval, I'm placing you in charge of a new division, interspecies relations. Your first task will be to establish formal diplomatic ties with humanity. It would be my honor, Admiral. Susan stepped forward with a data crystal. This contains our standard first contact package, cultural information, technological exchange protocols, and diplomatic guidelines. We look forward to building a lasting relationship with the Krathen Empire. As the meeting concluded, both sides exchanged formal farewells. But there was warmth now, understanding where there had been suspicion. Back on the bridge, Jack made a final log entry. First contact with the Krathen Empire was successful, though not in the way anyone expected. They came looking for conquest and found cooperation. They brought weapons and left with wisdom. Sometimes the greatest victories aren't won in battle, but in the moments when we choose not to fight. The Defiant and the Krathen fleet parted ways, but not as strangers or enemies. They left as the beginning of something new, allies who had learned that the universe was big enough for different kinds of strength. Months later, at the signing of the first human-Krathen cooperation treaty, Admiral Vossitar would tell the assembled dignitaries, "We came to test human strength and found something far more powerful, their humanity." And in the annals of galactic history, the day a human warship left aliens speechless would be remembered not for the power it displayed, but for the wisdom it demonstrated. The galaxy had changed forever, and it started with a simple truth. Sometimes the most advanced technology is not a weapon, but an outstretched hand.